Welcome back for another live episode here at RSA. As we're starting to close out the week, it's a really exciting, probably chaotic week as we have witnessed, but I'm really excited here to be joined by, I think it's fair to say, a new kid on the block, but with a very exciting product in the works. So, Andrew, thank you for joining me. Tell us a little bit more about Cipher and what it is that you've been building there.
Yeah, so Cipher, I like to categorize us as a cryptographic security and posture management solution. So, really, what we're building is a way for companies to understand how cryptography is implemented across their environments so that they can identify vulnerabilities even by today's standards, but also start preparing for this whole post quantum readiness journey. And we're a SaaS business. Our main focus right now is technology and in the platform.
I think it's really exciting because obviously you've raised a pre-seed round, which is an incredible achievement. Obviously shows that there's an appetite, a bit of a product market fit there. And you're on a cusp of that really difficult time where you're still in refinement. There's the R&D going on, but it's a case of you also want to see, okay, what's the appetite in the market? But before we get into that, what was the inspiration for you to create this? Was there a moment where I've recognized that there's a gap here, let me go and fix it? Or was there anything that was the main driver for you to go, okay, this is something that we're going to take the plunge on and do?
Yeah, I think from a technology perspective, it's still such an early market. When I started to do some initial research in my MBA program, I was looking around to see what solutions were out there to help companies address this, and there really wasn't much. I think over time, there's been quick development in established companies building out products in this space. The benefit for us is that we get to learn from how other companies have been doing it so far and build from the ground up with those best practices in mind. And so I think that from the competitive landscape side, it is still so new that we're still learning off of each other in that way. The origin story was just research. I started asking around across the industry for feedback. I built that was just like an educational site for helping people understand why this is an important area. And that ultimately caught the attention of who's now our design partner. We had a lot of collaborative discussions around how to craft and build a solution to help them address this at an enterprise level. Over 9 months, that eventually turned into contractual engagement with their team. We're learning off of each other and we're building and we're implementing these best practices, but hopefully in a scalable way that we can ultimately take this and deploy it to other customers.
And you're in this really unique and arguably very exciting, although probably also really challenging position of, like I say, it's almost this trial and error, this creativity. Like you're really in the prime of the innovation side of things, which I mean, for some people it's turbulent, it's difficult, but ultimately at the same time, there's no ceiling in terms of the creativity. Every day is literally, okay, how can we do this? And we were joking earlier about this buzzword fatigue that's going on, and I don't want to start bringing all these things that everybody talks about, but one thing that and it's fair to say about what's evolved within the cybersecurity industry, but also just any form of development industry when it comes to software, is of course when we look at the adoption of being able to use or automate certain technologies and stuff, the way that you're able to accelerate development of a product is so much quicker than it used to be. So if we're looking at anything like LLMs or just AI technology that's allowing that to happen, like when it comes to what that refinement and what that growth is going to look like, do you think, or have you felt the experience of, okay, like we've been able to accelerate this relatively quickly? And I asked that because what things looked like 3 months ago look different now. They'll look different again in 3 months. Like the market is evolving at an unprecedented rate, essentially.
Yeah, I think definitely. It's what helped me and some of our extended team do the initial prototyping and proof of concept work to validate what we were building and how it can actually be applied into environments. I think too, it's really helpful to leverage some of these tools for just doing like the routine tasks that's redundant and similar. So a really good example is establishing our first integration partners. We need to deploy in a similar way through different channels.
Yeah.
And a lot of that can be sped up very quickly by leveraging these models to help us develop and build fast. And once we have a really good idea about how to architect the solution, then we can really just speak with these tools and say, here's what we need to go do. And I have to give credit to our head of engineering and some of our junior developers for leveraging these tools, because they have the foundational knowledge to first understand how it has to be built and then speed that up by leveraging those tools. Where if I just tried to step in and be like, hey, write me a cryptographic discovery, it would be nonsense.
Yes.
So
Yeah. It's insane here.
yeah.
I think you'd stand a better chance than I would. But I think it's obviously really exciting because you've come to RSA, and one thing that you mentioned at the start there is the fact that in the landscape, there's a couple of people that you're able to bounce off, learn off. You're able to see, okay, what's working in the market. That this is a prime location to people that I always talk about the fact that RSA is this opportunity of a real kind of kickoff for the year of this predictability of, we've got things like the innovation sandbox, we've got the investors that we see a lot of announcements of funding that basically come off the back of this week. We see product launches, and we see conversations from all the keynote speakers around where we anticipate the market's going to go. Just from your experience of being here this week, being able to see what's going on there, what's been your key takeaways in terms of the relevance of what you're building?
I think it's super exciting to see how many sessions there are with quantum safe cryptography as a focus. This provides some of the education to business leaders that this is something that needs to be addressed. Earlier today, I was in a learning session where another vendor in our space deployed in a customer environment, found a bunch of legacy implementations, even by like today's standards. The customer was in denial, disbelief that these implementations existed. And so I think that's the value today. And the communication of what we're building to leaders in the space, for them to hear that, I think is helpful to progress our industry, because people hear quantum and they're like, okay, not on the priority list. We've heard it's coming for 10 years, all of the classic rebuttals. And I totally understand that. And again, we were talking before about aversity to buzzwords, and I'm sick of hearing some of them myself in our area. But I think that just being able to sit in and see that this is a big topic is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's really great to see that people are taking steps and starting to plan this, because it's a really long process. And I think that is one of my biggest takeaways just being here.
I think it's really exciting because, as you mentioned, I think quantum has been theoretical for quite a long time, and it's been this out of reach. It is what it is, but it's not coming anytime soon. This has probably been the first where we've really started to see like companies making revenue and across the board, but it's a case that actually this is now a problem that people are starting to address. And I think, again, it circles back to the way that the development of technology is accelerating is pretty significant. And I think that's probably rushed it more than people realized, but it's a threat as a necessity that arguably is more present than I think a lot of people realize. And maybe it's a lack of education, maybe it's just maybe it's a more thing of there's about 10,000 problems every technology leader needs to solve, and which one do we prioritize? But what's exciting for you here in terms of what's like next on the horizon? Obviously, the next 12 to 18 months, I imagine, are going to be a pretty significant journey for you in terms of, okay, you're finding the product. I imagine it's going to get to the point where you're hoping to start taking this officially to market and so on. So what are you excited for? What's on the roadmap? What should people be paying attention to here?
Yeah, I think the main thing for us is continuing to learn and help companies solve this problem in their own context. One of the things that I was speaking with a couple others earlier about is a lot of the off-the-shelf solutions in the market right now don't seem to solve exactly what customers are looking for, which is what led to our design partnership. And I think over the next 9 months, my goal at Cipher is to find our next couple design partners and identify the gaps where some of the existing tools out there aren't solving this for them and helping them. That is my purest reason for founding the company, is just building something that helps these companies solve this difficult problem. And I'm just like really excited for the opportunity to do that and to learn from other organizations that have unique environments that, you know, that need special attention.
Yeah, ultimately, the market's at an exciting inflection, but I think you're in something that's ahead of the curve. And what I mean by that is there's a demand for what you're building, but you've not sat there with 250 competitors like some of the other vendors on the floor are. And that's an exciting position to be in. It's also a difficult position to be in because there's not that many people to learn their mistakes from. You're the one that's going to have to go through all of that. But it also means then that there's the opportunity to define a category. There's the opportunity to do that. And I don't think that many vendors get that opportunity to do it. So it's really exciting. We're going to have to do a follow-up at the next RSA and see, okay, what's that journey looks like. So no pressure. I've got high expectations of what that's going to be.
Okay.
But no, honestly, thank you, because I know it's been a crazy week. I know, obviously, for anyone tuning in, literally going to have a night flight here and managed to get us squeezed in last minute to make sure we could do this live. But I think what you're building at Cipher is really exciting. I think you've done a fantastic job. You've got something there's definitely going to have a product market fit and a demand. It's just going to be exciting to see how that journey looks for you. So thank you for joining me. For everybody tuning in, thank you for following along. For all the conversations we've been having this week, as we know, it has definitely been a very busy but yet exciting week at RSA this year. But that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining, and I will see you all next time for more conversations that are shaping cyber.